Celebrate the summer solstice in community.
Join our annual Arts and Wellness Festival to connect, create, and celebrate with the Sultry Sisters.
In 2023, we explored what it means to cultivate your sanctuary.
Our 3-day festival highlights BIPOC, women, and queer artists and wellness practitioners based in San Diego.
Each year, we collaborate with featured guest artists to build our festival program, which includes creative expression classes, wellness workshops, and performances.
Day 1 of the festival is all about connection. We begin our festival with a social mixer where attendees enjoy music, dancing, and have an opportunity to meet other attendees, guest artists, and us.
Day 2 of the festival is all about creating. Our arts and wellness workshops give folks an opportunity to explore, embrace, and embody what cultivating your sanctuary means to them.
Day 3 of the festival is all about celebration. There is music, dancing, performances, and an open mic for attendees to share. Without a doubt, we always close with a dance party and teach folks the sultry strut.
We are grateful for all the memories made each year at our Summer Solstice Arts and Wellness Festival, and we can't wait to see you next year.
In the meantime, remember to keep living vibrant and shining bright.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, it's Wednesday. I did not mean to rhyme, but we might not be on time, but we are feeling the vibes of Wednesday. Hi, everyone. Yes, so it's been a week. If you're new here, welcome to our Sultry Sister Hangout. For this point of time, we are doing our Bayan book club series featuring The Artist's Way. And for the next several weeks, we're going to be checking in after reading each chapter and finding ways to live a creative life through the guidelines of this book. So that's what we are doing here in this virtual space. Welcome.
Yes, welcome everyone. We have Jessie joining us.
Hi, yes. You know what we learned today? That YouTube will tell you how many folks are waiting for you to go live. And so that was really cool and neat to see that. We love technology and we love to share sometimes our back end, what we see. And just to include throughout this book club discussion, we want to be live in the comments. So even if you're not actively reading The Artist's Way, we do appreciate y'all stopping by to say hello and engage in whatever fashion works for you. Some of you join intentionally with your book in hand. Some of you are on commuting, maybe listening to us in a podcast, and some of you might even be tuning in for a replay. We love to read the comments, even if it's like a year out, a week out. So make sure to drop us a line in the chat. And with that said, we welcome you and we want you to let us know where you are tuning in from and what you are sipping on. I'll get started. I'm tuning in from San Diego State University. I'm currently a grad student, and I am tuning in from what we call Siesta Island. It's a little loft in one of the theaters at school. Shh, don't tell nobody. And we take naps up here. We get away from the hustle and bustle. And I happen to be able to be in this beautiful space for our book clubs every Wednesday.
Nice. So, hey, y'all. So, I'm tuning in from the DC area. So, the sun is starting to set, not quite yet, but so it's just in my eye. It's just beating me in my eye. You know, I have my ring light set up so that when it gets dark, then I still have sunshine or light on my face. But I'm sipping on some mango juice that I got from Trader Joe's, and I just put it in this mug, so it's cute. And then I also have some agua because you got to stay hydrated, y'all.
Yes, we love some agua. I reluctantly wanted to share my drink because it's not the healthiest, but I am drinking some Celsius. It is Wednesday, and it was in the fridge. And I remembered I put this, and I feel like past self was thinking of future AJ and was like, girl, this Wednesday's gonna try you. And so this is what I'm sipping on. Is it the healthiest? No. But is it the last Celsius I buy? Yes. It's not the greatest. So I'm on a journey, recovering a sense of safety away from this product. Do not sponsor us.
Oh my gosh. So we have Kyle checking in from Wheaton. No drink yet, but soon to get some tea. Okay, we love tea. Oh, I had some matcha earlier today. Obviously, it wasn't on live, but it was yummy. So for work, we did like our team building. So we got lunch, and then we checked out this Black woman-owned cafe in DC called Grounded, and I got a matcha, and it had butterfly leaf, butterfly pea, and then pistachio. So it was a very yummy, and I got it with oat milk, and it was just so yummy. I loved it.
That sounds lavish and very tasty. I love, I love, I love.
And I got a new plant. But it's over there, so I can't show y'all.
So a couple things. We're going to do a few announcements, and then we'll run down the outline of how we're going to run our first check-in of the week. If you are in the San Diego area, join us May 24th. We're having our final Radical Soul Care series. This week, we had a meeting with one of our guest artists, and we are excited to bring y'all some amazing activities to embrace the season and really gear us up for our 4th annual Summer Solstice Festival. So if you're in the area, we have a free workshop in our hometown of Oceanside. You can learn more and RSVP at sultrysisters.com/events. I will say, y'all, unlike other workshops, we will have food. So definitely want to RSVP so we know how many people to expect, because we like to make sure our community is fed and we plan accordingly. So make sure to do that. Speaking of the summer solstice, our theme this upcoming year is the healing nature of play. Our registration is coming soon, but we do have an interest list. So if you go to our website at sultrysisters.com/events, you can join our interest list to let us know that you're interested in coming. And once the registration's open, you'll get a direct email to sign up and get more information on how to volunteer, if that's of your interest, how to apply for our artist scholarships, and also how to support us if you're feeling abundant and you want to learn different monetary ways. Like, I can't come to the festival, but I'd like to pay it forward and pay for someone else's ticket. We love all the above. So make sure to join that interest list. I will put it in the chat for us.
Yes. So we're super excited about our annual festival. Again, the theme is play, which this week we talk a little bit about that in the artist way. So we're really excited to just dive deeper week by week as we prepare for our summer solstice celebration. And we have some exciting updates for our book club. And so last week we did share that we have an open call for anyone in the Sultry community and the book club community who wants to join as a guest. And so if you want to come on live with us, your face will be also in a box down here. We can't see if I put my hands on there. And then we'll share your reflections, your insights, how the week went for you, all those things. So next week, for week 2 of the Artist Way, we have Katie Ruiz joining us. So we're super excited. You work with us for our Radical Soul Care series. If you saw on our Instagram the other day, we shared the final Sankofa pom-pom backdrop that now we have for all of our events. So Katie and the Pom Pom Project helped us do that craft recently. She's been a part of our Summer Solstice Festival last year, where we started the Sankofa. And then also last year, leading up to the festival, she was on live with us talking about craftivism. So we're really excited to have Katie back and now to have her a part of the book club. So yeah, if you are interested in joining, definitely reach out to us. You can DM us on Instagram at Sultry Sisters or email us at connect@sultrysisters.com. And we are so excited. Or just comment below if you're live right now, and then we'll connect with you all. And then if you any other questions about book club, all the info is on our website. So sultrysisters.com/book club.
Yes. So, how we're going to do our weekly check ins, we're going to start in with the 3 questions at the end of the chapter, checking in about how our practice went with the morning pages, with our artist date. There's 3 questions, and we'll get into that, but we're going to start with the discussion part. So, if you are actively participating, this is the time to get your fingers ready to be live in the chat. And then after that, if you're like, hey, I'm new, I'm joining, what is this book club? We're going to go into reflections of chapter 1, and we're going to go and talk about each section of the chapter and what portions of the chapter illuminated for us for the week. So that's how it's going to go, and then we'll wrap up and we'll do the same thing next week.
Yes, and then I'm adding in the chat again our link for our book club. So we have on the bookclubs.com platform, we have a free book club. So if you join on there, you get to see our alerts. We share, like over the weekend, I asked what y'all were doing for your artist date, and some folks replied on there. That's a way to just build more community. If you're not on social media and you just really want to talk about the book, we post reminders on there, and you get alerts when we go live. So it's a really great way to just stay connected. And then when we're not currently doing a book, then we also post polls of like what book we want to do next, what summer reads, all of those kinds of things. So it's really a great way to just stay connected if you love all things books.
Yes, so let's get into the check-in. Our first question for our week 1 check-in is, how many days did we do morning pages? Ooh, y'all, did anyone else have a rough start? Okay, this is a judgment-free, transparent place. Just because we're hosts doesn't mean we're perfect. So yeah, I will say, we told everybody, Wednesday is our day 1. Typically when you ideally want to read the chapter and start our morning pages. So for me, I got 3 out of 7, y'all. I got 3 out of 7.
I think I only did 2. Wait, let me look at my journal. Maybe I forgot.
I got 3 out of 7. Now, how Julia Cameron talked about morning pages being at least 3 pages. I will say that I got to like 2.5, and one of the pages I got interrupted, so I had to come back to it. So I definitely felt like challenged with finding the time to do it right in the morning. And all my pages this week were done at my studio, or at in my parking lot, because I wanted to make sure I got to school or I got to work, because I have to get to work so early that I was like, okay, I'm going to get to the place I need to go. And with the 10 minutes I have usually when I'm setting up, I'm going to do my morning pages. So it wasn't the ideal, but that's how I was able to get at least 3 in, was because I had to have that notebook with me. And part of the other days why I didn't get the morning pages is because my pages was in my car. My journal was in my car. And I know she talks about you can be on any page, but part of me wants to keep it all in one spot. So call it an excuse, but that is my truth.
Exactly. We have some folks here sharing. Jesse shared, my book arrived yesterday, so I was a bit behind. No worries. Do it at your own pace. We are still going to be here every week to check in. And the first week, again, she knows that we're still getting acclimated to all of these things. Kyle sharing, I was able to get the pages done every day this week, but I missed the artist date. It's okay. We're going to get there in a second with the artist date. But nice. Okay. 7 out of 7. Hey.
Yes. We got 4 out of 7 from Halen. Great.
Nice.
Yes. And how did it feel, y'all? How did it feel to tell us a little bit about your experience? Are you feeling like this is something that you always do? Is this a new practice? How are we feeling with this new relationship with writing first thing in the morning?
Yeah, so I only did 2 because I realized it was over the weekend. Because I wake up.
You took the weekend off?
What do you mean? Huh?
That's great.
I was like,
you relax, yeah.
Well, I was saying I wrote on the weekend.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, I was saying because I don't go into work because I work, so I have to wake up early and then get on the train and do all the things I
Got
do.
it.
I
Mhm.
get to work, I am working, and then when I get home, I eat, and then I go to sleep. So it is very difficult for me to do them in the weekdays. So I'm trying to find space because this week I was like, okay, I'll do them when I get home. I'm so tired. No. So I really would like to just get them in the morning so I could just
Mhm.
have them done because my current schedule. So yeah, I feel like my challenge is just waking up earlier to do them before. Because I was like, oh, maybe I'll do them on the train. No, I commute during the busiest times of the day. So I'm standing up carrying 2 bags. So I can't even
Yeah.
do that in my commute. Um, so yeah, it's challenging.
Mhm. Let's see what folks have said. Jesse says, "My hand hurt, yes, but it was helpful. I see why it could be valuable." Mhm.
Yeah, I do feel like
Definitely.
2 days I did it. I did write full 3 pages, and my notebook is this size. So, a substantial amount of writing. But I did feel like by the third page, which I experienced last year, is like the first page is usually just really what is on my mind at the moment. Second page is like, okay, I'm starting to I'm getting stuff out, but I'm starting to kind of process things. And then the third page, I feel like is when there's like a thing that sprouts up, whether that be if I was talking about things I needed to do earlier, then it's like, oh, now I have maybe a new perspective of how I want to get that thing done. Or one of the days, it was just like having a mini, I guess, revelation of sort of like what I was processing. So I do feel like, again, just that motion of doing it and to the third page, for me, there's like something that happens on the third page specifically. So yeah.
Yes, there's a magic in the continuation, getting it to that third page. I feel that too, because I would get to 2.5, and just when I feel like I'm not necessarily like thinking, okay, next page, that's when it's like over.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting.
Yeah. And to Jesse's point, I did feel like I feel like my brain was going faster than my hand can write. And that sometimes frustrates me because I'm just like, I just want to get it out. So then it's like kind of illegible and stuff, which again is technically fine because you say you're not even supposed to be looking at it. But it's just hard for me sometimes because I'm like, I want to make my handwriting look nice. But then the stream of consciousness is streaming. So it's like how to do all of that. But
I think from last book club, I discovered there's a certain kind of pen that I like to write with because it needs to like glide, but it can't bleed.
yeah.
So
Yeah, because you don't
yeah.
want your hand to smudge it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely important. And then we have Halen sharing. I've been a morning journaler for a long time. I find it really necessary for burning off the anxious energy I usually wake up with. Yes, I do feel like that's a great way to put that into words. And then Halen shares, when I don't journal, I feel it. It's emotional hygiene for sure.
You know what? It's true. It's like if you don't brush your teeth, you got to stink breath. If you don't journal, you got to stink attitude. I mean,
That part, that
I love that, Halen. I love that thought. It's like that emotional hygiene. Ooh. And I will say this has been a really challenging week. I've been a long hours, and I think one thing I wrote in my journal, it was the third day that I wrote, because this was in the middle of my day during one of my breaks, and I was saying like, well, I can't tell you what I'm saying. Actually, I'm not allowed to say it, so never
that's
mind. I realize we're not supposed to share, but I did feel better after.
that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the day was trying me.
No, for sure. So yeah, keep commenting below if y'all have more thoughts or insights on your journaling practice. Also, feel free to share if your notebook or the journal you're using, if you felt like, oh, this was a good size. If you were like, oh, I had no room, I had to write some like double the pages because my notebook was small, or were you like the notebook was too big, I need to make it smaller, or were you like struggling with writing and you did an audio one? Let us know those things as well.
Yeah.
Because again, we're all just trying to find our flow.
Something I realized after, struggling to get my morning pages done is that I need to make sure my journal and my pen are on my nightstand, because the fact that I forgot that it was in my backpack in my car, and in the morning, that was like another feat. So that's what got in my way. So take a note, y'all, like what got in your way for morning pages? We'll reflect on all of it overall at the end, but just how can we make it easier for ourselves to do it in the morning? And for me, it's like placement of the journal.
No, that makes sense, because on Saturday, Sunday, when I did them, it was on my bed. Like I had the journal and the pen next to me. I just eat with myself.
Rolled over.
I have the whole other side of usually just my pillows. So I had this next to me. So I just rolled over, started writing. So again, it's about kind of like reducing that friction, right? And that resistance to it. Because I was just like, okay, I could just roll over and write versus again. But we'll get into that later. But yes. Jesse shares placement for me also, right? Because kind of with my morning routine with my work stuff, like with my lunch, my water bottle, my backpack, I pack it all the night before. So then in the morning, I literally just put my clothes on, get ready, and then get out the door. So again, with morning pages, I'm realizing, I do also need a regimented routine like that too for it to get done. Because just being like, oh yeah, in the morning, I'm just going to feel like doing it. No, I will not feel like doing it because my body naturally doesn't want to feel like doing nothing at that time.
Yes. So how about our dates? How was your artist date? Were you able to get to an artist date? If you were, let us know in the chat. What did that look like? I know some people shared what they had in mind for themselves. For me, y'all, I did not get to my artist date. My artist date was supposed to be today. During my 2-hour break, I wanted to go to the koi pond, and it started raining. Not ideal to be staring at koi, and then my umbrella is nowhere to be found. So that was option number one, because I knew that was the only time I have in my schedule this week, because I was teching this weekend, long hours in the theater. And then during my lunch break at the tech on Sunday, I was like, I'm going to go get myself some ice cream and walk the beach. Well, someone was like, where are you going, AJ? And me being a nice person, invited them. And you know what the rule is? They cannot be invited. But had I just had that boundary, I'm about to do something for me, I would have been able to accomplish that. So I realized in my struggle to have an artist date that I also struggle with sometimes having a boundary for myself to say, no, this is just for me. I tend to be very inclusive. And so if I'm going to go do something, if someone asks me what I'm doing, I say it and I invite before I even realize what this is for. And that was supposed to be for me to get away from the matote madness of tech, and to be able to take myself to get ice cream and walk by the beach, smell the beach and hear the sounds. But I mean, it was still nice doing it with other people. But for me, that's a lesson. It's okay, to do this artist date, there will be parts of you that have to not just be so, yeah, you can come along. I have to really carve out that time.
Yeah, those boundaries, right? Which again, a lot of times I think in general, when we say the word boundaries, people make it seem it's be mean or rigid, but it's no, you want to just honor yourself, right? And that's what you're reflecting on. It's in that moment I wasn't able to honor myself. I was able to honor, your connection with another person. Maybe next time you'll be okay, let me honor myself, which makes sense. It's hard. And this week I actually did 2.
Oh, you did one for you and me.
Yeah, I was but it kind of surprised myself. So in general, for the last 2 years, I like to go to concerts with myself. And so I just buy tickets when I see artists that I'm interested in. So it turns out that JoJo from back in the day, y'all, leave, get out right now. So she was in town yesterday. And so I had bought the tickets, but I do go with myself to concerts. So that was a fun artist day. It was so much fun. Little baby Tony Lynn was so happy because I was oh my God,
right now.
Yeah, so it was good. But then on Sunday, so my plan actually for my artist date this week was to go to this farmer's market on Saturday. I did not do that plan because I woke up Saturday. I was I'm tired. I ain't going. So then I was okay, Tony. So tomorrow, Saturday, I was you are going to do an artist date. So the weather was really nice. So I ended up going on a long walk with myself. So I did 4 miles of a walk around this park, and then I ended up going to Trader Joe's. But I was super happy because I think that's my first intentional walk well, now it's spring, but I think since the winter time, I haven't really done intentional walks. It's always like I'm going to run errands, or I'm walking to work, or with other people. But this was my first like solo walk in a long time, and I felt so energized. I loved it. I was like, oh, I'm back in my element. So that was nice. So that was my original artist date that I mentally was. And then when I realized my concert was this week, I was like, oh, I have another one. At first I was like, can I move? I was like, can this count for next week? I'm like, don't know, Tony. It literally has to be within
it's abundance.
So I was like, okay, I guess I have two. But yeah, so that was nice to do things. And I think for me, what I'm learning about myself, I have to schedule it. Like with my morning, I'm realizing I got to schedule them in the morning. And with my artist day, I have to tell myself, okay, this day you're going to do this activity. Just like I would honor plans with a friend, with you, with whoever, I would honor a plan with myself. So I went to the farmer's market on Saturday. I was like, okay, even though you couldn't do that, what else are you going to do for yourself? So that was helpful for me that I mentally planned it with myself. So then even though that first plan didn't go, I made sure I rescheduled another date for myself.
Yeah, it's the scheduling, that level of commitment to yourself for sure.
And I think that helps with the boundaries that we're talking about too, because if you know, okay, this chunk of time I'm with myself, then you can try to slot into other stuff, or maybe be like, okay, I'll meet up with this person after the date, or those kinds of things.
I think to me that was like kind of where where it fell through the cracks for me is that I already felt overwhelmed with my overscheduled schedule for this week, that like mentally I was like, well, I'll get it in somehow. And so I would like the top of that morning that I was going to do my lunch walk, it was the top of that morning. So it wasn't as solidified. That's why it was not in my mind to be like, oh no, this is only mine. And yeah, so I think that especially for some of us who feel like we are really overscheduled, I think thinking of it in like, for me, what I'm trying to do for next week, knowing that my schedule, well, next week I'm on spring break, so it's a little bit different, but but just like being real with myself, because the last time I did this, I didn't have like the intense schedule that I have now. And I'm kind of calling back to Rest is Resistance from Trisha Hershey. And I'm like, you better find it. And even I need to find it, because I know, in the book, it talks about having a longer chunk of time, like an hour to two. But if I only have 30 minutes, like I need to give myself the grace and make it happen in those small chunks. And maybe I have multiple small chunks, but I think I need to expand my definition of what an artist date is going to look like this time around, which is, it's going to be different.
Yeah. And also this week I was thinking, because when I didn't do the farmer's market, and it's still not the warmest out yet, like it's spring, but it's still kind of cold. So I was like, oh, like maybe I don't want to do stuff outside. Like I could do stuff at home, because I know last year, because we did it for winter for me and the East Coast, it was like snowing and cold last year when I was doing the book. So sometimes I would go out and do things, but sometimes I would just do stuff at home. So I was reminding myself this week that like, oh yeah, you could just like cook and eat dinner at home. Or even if I order food and I'm eating it intentionally, knowing it's a date with myself, that's an option, right? Like we got to eat. So like maybe eating a meal with yourself is your artist date, whether it's 15 minutes or an hour. If it's taking a bath, or like even an intentional shower where like you put on some like essential oils, it's like you can also kind of think about, I'm sharing this for everyone and a reminder for myself that like you can also just kind of rethink about the stuff you already do in your routine, and then just have the intention of like, okay, this is solo intentional time with myself.
Especially like a lot of us may be working at a deficit, which is not ideal, to like, yeah, turn like, now I'm like, oh, I can turn, oh, oopsies, that's my Tupperware, but we can turn like anything we already do into a more intentional time. I love that. I'm going to try that. I'll let y'all know how that goes.
Yeah, for sure. We have Kyle sharing, thinking about the pages. I'm wondering whether the size of the page matters more or less than just the action of completing 3 separate pages. Maybe that completion at the end of a page matters.
Psychologically, I feel like it's the latter, the completion, for sure.
I do feel like the days that I get 3 full pages done, there is a different sense of like, ooh, I did that. Like kind of like you're proud of yourself or like accomplishment feeling. So I feel like personal experience, I feel like it's the completion. And I feel like that keeps me motivated. And like even the days I don't complete it, it's okay. I know I got something down that is helpful, that is not in my head anymore. But there is something about that. So thanks for sharing that, Kyle. And we have Jesse sharing for their artist date, they visited 2 local free art museums. I realized I've been doing artist dates since I was a kid. I love doing this sort of thing. Anyhow, one of the exhibits was about anxiety, and it was a great example of how I can express my own experiences through art. I love that. And I love the realization that you've been doing it since a kid, right? I feel like I'm similar. Like ever since I was a young human, I've enjoyed time with myself, and I would be like, I don't want to play with other people. Like I just want to do this with myself. But yeah, it's nice to know like as we grow into ourselves and into adulthood that like we can reconnect with some of those things we already were doing.
Definitely. It goes into the whole like notion that we are excavating and finding parts of ourselves that we forgot about. So beautiful testimony, Jesse.
Yes. Then we have Samantha Brown joining us. I started a weekly sewing class. Ooh, nice. And I really enjoyed it. Bought a machine and took time to practice the basic stuff and affirm myself to just enjoy. Yes, that is something we're going to mention into the chapter this week because she talks about being a beginner. So I love that. I love sewing. I'm wanting to take a class too. There's a class at a community college nearby that I want to try. So yeah, I love all of these things. So yeah, feel free, other people joining on live, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, you can comment if you did an artist date this week. So that's solo intentional time with yourself. What did that look like? If you're just joining for the first week, you can share your name, where you're tuning in from. So we just kind of get to know who's in the room.
Yes, and our last question for our check-in is, were there any other issues this week that you consider significant for your recovery? I always love how our check-ins will always end with that too, like anything else that come up from this week's practice.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I named a lot of my issues already. But if I were to think more, are there any other issues this week that you consider? I think what's going to be significant for my recovery is finding pockets of rest, is like just not letting it, and like this is a constant lesson for me, is like not allowing the well to dry before you fill it again. I think that's going to be really important for me. I think also after reading the chapter, which we'll get into, is like the notion of like that negative talk of when I am feeling at deficit is to speak life into myself and affirm myself, which I eventually do. But it's just like reminding myself, like in these moments where I'm feeling like at a deficit, it's easier for those negative beliefs to resurface, to be illuminated, and to not judge that, but understand that it's coming through the environment that I'm in. So instead of being down on myself, like change the environment if I can, versus like just be a better person and just have more energy. It's like, or you could just be, that's where I'm like, I think that's going to be significant in my recovery, especially like moving forward, is to just be transparent, meet myself where I'm at, meet myself where I'm at, and be more, instead of being anxious about coming to the book club every week with like, ooh, I didn't complete everything, allowing myself to ask this third question. Well, what did that reveal? Like lean into the discovery of the circumstance versus the lack of like completion. I think that's a shift of perspective for me is going to be necessary for me to really discover and get to the root, because I keep finding myself in this lesson. If you play back last time, I'm like, oh, I'm here again. So that there's something to be said about that I'm here again. And I really want to excavate that for myself.
All right. And then we have someone sharing. Kyle shares, I definitely need to carve out some specific time for myself for those artist dates. That may be a challenge this time around, especially if that date is outside the house. Yes. So again, I think a lot of us are just realizing that intentionality is really important, right? That we can make these intentions with ourselves and then to honor them as well, right? And I think that's why, like in the beginning, she talks about creating that contract, because right, just like when you sign an agreement, whether it's business, work, when you do other collaborations, having a contract with yourself through this journey of the artist way is important too. So there's something that you go back to of like, there's a reason I started this. I want to honor this for myself. And so I think, again, we're kind of all saying that in our own experiences. Yeah. And so do we want to talk about the task now or at the end?
I think we should talk about the tasks now. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the tasks because, I mean, it depends. Oh, that's a good question. I'm like, because
I
the
guess
tasks.
go in the comments.
Yeah, let us know in the comments.
So just a reminder for y'all, if anyone is joining for the first time, the tasks are after we read the chapter. The tasks are, she lists 10 different activities or practices you are invited to do throughout the week. And then she encourages us to choose one that you're really excited about. And then one that you're kind of like, I don't know, like it's kind of making me uncomfy, kind of rubbing you the wrong way. But yeah, so if you
let us know. I know some of us just got the book, so maybe the tasks haven't been completed. So maybe going through the chapter and talking about it, but let us know. We want to honor those of you who are actively engaging with us where our time is best suited. While we're waiting for people to answer in the chat, I love this quote that's on page 38. Make your own recovery the first priority in your life. I feel like my eyes just went. It's interesting what your eyes gravitate towards and read first.
Okay, since no one's voting, I'll say we'll go through the quotes and the different sections of this week's chapter, and then we'll touch upon the task at the end. If y'all haven't received your books yet, that's totally fine. And then for week one, some of the tasks actually were our pages and our artist date.
So
even if you are just starting, for those that did share that they did those two activities, you did your task. So yeah, but we'll save that for the end so we can get into the different sections of this week's chapter and kind of what resonated with us. And we'll give y'all space to discuss and chat with us about what y'all were feeling throughout the first week.
Yeah, so this is week one of the chapter Recovering a Sense of Safety. I'm going to read this little sidebar. This week initiates your creative recovery. You may feel both giddy and defiant, hopeful and skeptical. The readings, tasks, and exercises aim at allowing you to establish a sense of safety, which will enable you to explore your creativity with less fear, which we love. It's like clearing the slate.
Exactly.
And the first thing that that she mentions in this book is shadow artists. And I remember I feel like this is I really liked how she illuminated this. And one quote that I wanted to share is right in the first paragraph. As young artists, we need and want to be acknowledged for our attempts and efforts, as well as our achievements and triumphs. Unfortunately, many artists never receive their critical early encouragement. As a result, they may not know that they are artists at all. Yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge that portion, and she dives into it more, but I think it's recognizing if where we are now, are we currently a shadow artist? Is there a version of a shadow artist? Even if we are artists in one right, is there a part of us that's not able to fully embrace another art form? I think that invitation to acknowledge that is important.
And then when she talks about shadow artists too, on page 27, she shares, artists themselves, so shadow artists are artists themselves, but ignorant of their true identity. Shadow artists are to be found shadowing declared artists. So she gives examples. So it could be someone who's like an editor for authors, right? So like they're not necessarily writing their own books, but they edit other people's books, right? Or it could be someone being like a manager of an artist, like a musician or something. So
Or a theater critic that's not a director.
so you can also think about that, not necessarily yourself, and maybe if you know people, you're like, oh, okay, maybe that's an example of a shadow artist. And I know we in Soul Tree community, we talk about this a lot, where like some people say, right, like you have an artist job or you have like a muggle job, like your regular job. Like even amazing artists that we know, like Bell Hooks was also working. So she's a writer, right? That's how a lot of us know her. But she also was working at a bar or like nightlife so she can get income and money. And then during the day she would write. And so many artists are like that, where they have a regular job and then they have their artist job. But then for Artist Way, she talks about how many shadow artists are not able to distinguish that they themselves are also artists, right? So that's where the shadow comes from, is where like you're in the backgrounds, behind the scenes, and you're not necessarily seeing yourself as the artist. So there's a difference, right? There's people who have muggle jobs and do see themselves as artists. And then there's people who, because they have a muggle job, it kind of stifles them from feeling like they are artists themselves. So I resonate with all of what she shares too, because it's just like in society, I think also what I think about is that like, if you don't get paid for your art or your creations, and sometimes that's hard to feel like you identify as an artist. And it's like, it's not about our jobs, honestly.
Yeah, there's a quote by Natasha Rothwell that I saw this week, and I sent it to Tony. And this might hit for some of our shadow artists or just artists in general. Just because your paycheck doesn't match your ambition doesn't mean you aren't those things, right? Just because your paycheck doesn't match your creative passion doesn't mean you're not a creative or an artist. That really hit me, and I thought that was a beautiful message for our first week, that we're talking about recovering a sense of safety, and we're talking about the shadow artist, and listening to the inner artist child. I needed to hear that. It's like there's a lot of times where where in our society, in our culture, it's like unless you're getting paid for it, you can't embody that label. That is totally not true.
Yeah, exactly. Because then it's like, if we're really just doing this art and our creations because it's from given to us from creator, from God, from universe, from source, then it's like, it's not about the monetary exchange. It's just through us doing whatever we're doing to create, that is the art, not that there's a transaction. So I think that's what society, especially in the US, like strips us of, is that pureness and that like honest thing of just like, we're truly just creating art. And it doesn't matter if anyone sees it. I think that's the importance of the pages and stuff, is that like, you don't need to be witnessed. Like it is later on, what we can talk about that in other weeks, but she's just like, if it's just between you, yourself, and life force energy, creator, that's okay. Like no one has to know, or no one has to see you perform. No one has to buy your writing. And I think that's, again, like really what we're getting at with this. And then we have Kyle sharing, right? All of which just say that it's not bad to be a manager or editor. We need those. I think we just hope that folks are also able to pursue their art in some of their time outside of that. Exactly. And we shouldn't be shamed or made to feel less of an artist if we have to exist in these other roles, which I think is very important. And then Jesse shares, a lot of adults discouraged me from doing art when I was a kid. I thought of that while reading this section. Yes, and that's true for a lot of us. And that's kind of at the task at the end of this chapter. We kind of go into exploring that, if you chose those tasks, was like thinking about people while you're growing up or in your past who discourage you. So she calls them your enemies, who like maybe those things really stayed with you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Jesse's point, right? When like they're discouraging you, whether um, even sometimes people, it's not even targeted to you maybe, but you just hear them talking bad about a certain thing and you're like, okay, well, I like to do that thing, and if you're saying a negative thing, then maybe that applies to me. So that's what I was thinking when I was reflecting on those enemies, was like some things that people also, I don't know if they had malintention, but like it then got implanted in baby Tony. um, and it's unfortunate. And I think we have to spend the rest of our life trying to unlearn that, to rediscover ourselves, when if only we were nurtured and encouraged when we were younger, which another task is to think about the people who did pour into you. But yeah, I think it all is connected.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I mean, it goes back to like when I was in high school and I was, we're an avid, we're going to all these college, doing all this college prep. And they're like, so what do you want to major in? And I was like, I had no idea, y'all. I was like, why don't I have the answer? What do you want to be? And I was like, and I realized, because I was already doing what I wanted to do, right? I was already dancing, I was already performing, but that wasn't enough. They're like, no, 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 no. What do you want to do? And I was like, and it was like, and then people were like, well, how about teach? And I remember I was like, okay, yeah, teacher, that makes a lot of sense. And it wasn't until my dance teacher was like, what are you going to go to school for? And I was like, a teacher, I guess. She was like, have you ever thought of being a dance major? I said, they have a dance major? I had no idea you could go to higher education and study dance. I knew about like art history, more of that type of thing, but I didn't really know. And so it wasn't until I saw that I allowed that to be a possibility, but I was afraid to share it with our parents. I was like afraid. And for the longest time, I was like, yeah, I'm going to double major. Yeah, I'm gonna do the education thing. Y'all, I double majored in dance. I did performance and choreography. I did double major. I just didn't add the other element which they expected, which was the safe thing. So I remember that was that was an enemy that like, of like, what else are you going to do? And I remember for like my whole entire college career, what else? And I still get asked, what else am I going to do? I'm in grad school and I'm like, what else are you going to do? I'm like, what more do you want? I mean, I still get asked that. And so it's like,
Let's go from art.
Yeah, I'm in grad school for more art, but like, what else? It's like, is that not enough?
So. Yeah. And then from a young age, I wanted to be a fashion designer because I just loved all things fashion, loved designing my own stuff. I used to play with paper dolls, regular dolls, have my mom designing outfits for me and my dolls to match. And so I did a project in school, which part of one of the tasks is also listing things that you would do. Wait, I'll just word it so I don't mess it up. So y'all can ponder if you want. But one of the tasks is imaginary lives. If you had 5 other lives to lead, what would you do in each of them? So that you can marinate on that. But one of them I listed, I was like, oh, of course, fashion designer. I was like, exclamation point. I was like, of course. Which again, now in my recent years, I'm more so reconnecting to that and kind of stylist type of things, but I still don't necessarily design, right? I still want to learn how to sew so I can do my own creations. But anyways, I did a project when I was like 10 years old because it was like a career day project of like, what do you want to do? Oh yeah, for all the career days when I was elementary school, I would dress up as a fashion designer. Edna mode, me. Like I was like, this is all what I want to do. So I did a project, FITM, in New York, and it was back in the day when you would email like an interest postcard that you wanted more information. They sent me in the mail a big catalog of things of all their classes. I did a whole project on it, and then because of conditioning of society, once it got to me applying for colleges, that was no longer what I felt like was an option. So I didn't apply for fashion school, and now I have so many friends who went to FITM and FIT and all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, oh, I could have done that. But I went to school I still kind of was doing non-traditional kind of education because my first major is global cultures, which people are like, what is that? I studied different cultures around the world and essentially the impact of globalization. But I chose that because I just knew I wanted to travel and I wanted to do something in my major where I could learn other languages and travel to places that I spoke the language. So that was my first major. I did that, but then yeah, our parents were kind of like, "So what are you gonna do with this? Like this, what does that mean? Global studies?" And so then I added public health because that made more sense to our parents because they're in the medical field, which I love. I feel like I got great experience from that. But again, I'm like through this week and reading this chapter and doing the task, I'm like, oh yeah, what if baby Tony was nurtured from 10 years old to follow her dream of being a fashion designer versus that was what 21 years ago. So I could have 2 decades. But again, it's not shoulda, coulda, woulda, but it's just reflecting. I was like, oh yeah, that was like over 2 decades ago. I knew I wanted to do that. And now I'm like trying to go back to like nurture that part of me. So yeah, very interesting musings of this week.
Mm-hmm. There's another, and then thinking about that too, because you're talking about the protecting the artist's child within. I love this part about being a beginner, right? We talked about that's very present in like recovering a sense of safety, is like allowing ourselves to be a beginner at something. And there's a on page 30, she says, remember that in order to recover as an artist, you must be willing to be a bad artist. Give yourself permission to be a beginner. By being willing to be a bad artist, you have a chance to be an artist, and perhaps over time, a very good one.
Yes. I think that's so important, right? Because again, when I think about when I was young, I was trying to think of points of what of when people encouraged me, and there was some things, but it was hard because I danced when I was younger, but that's all I remember as a child doing because Alyssa danced. And then I guess I probably was interested, but I was just in it. So like, I can't really remember if that felt like nurturing me or if it was just by default, I became a dancer. And
By
yes,
circumstance, yeah.
I am good at it. I did enjoy it. I found great friendships and became like
Mm-hmm.
a leader on my dance teams. But like, I'm like, was that really what I wanted to be nurtured in? I don't know. So it's kind of hard for me when I think about childhood because I felt like the stuff I really was curious about wasn't necessarily the things I did, but I did do creative activities, but it wasn't necessarily, I guess, maybe my first choice. But so being a beginner, I feel like, again, I think because I was good at dance, they were like, oh yeah, do that. But I'm like, okay, just because you're good at a thing doesn't mean you have to do that. Like
That part.
do a thing, and I suck at it, but it's okay. And I hear even adults who have kids like around my age, and they're like, oh, such and such is really good at soccer, like I'm gonna put them in more soccer
To get scholarships.
but it's just like, but did you ask the kid if they want to do that? Like maybe they're good at it, but they really want to try ceramics or they really want to rock climb or something. So I think that's the one thing that when I was younger, adults didn't necessarily ask me what I wanted to do, but they just saw I was good at a thing and then just pushed me in that direction when I was like, oh, I kind of wish, like as an adult, I think about this a lot. Like I wish they would have allowed me the space to think about what I wanted to do and make a choice versus, oh, you're good at this, we're going to sign you up for more lessons. Because there's other things I'm curious about that I just never got the chance. Because then if you commit, then it takes up your whole life. And so I didn't really, I was a child that I didn't really try as much activities. Like even Alyssa, you tried more activities than I did. Like, I literally did dance and violin, which were things that she did. Really
right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, for our community of folks, it's like what's important for us in recovering a sense of safety is to identify our blocks, identify what has transpired, like, and grieve it. That's why a lot of the time travel, like go back and recollect, when we talk about radical soul care, grasping something at the root, and so even though this might be a prickly thing to do, is to go back, but that journal is a safe place for us to have those moments. And going into that, I thought it was very helpful to talk about your enemy within, core negative beliefs, and to go through these and see like what picked up. because it's a lot of the times we have to figure out, where do these beliefs come from? Who's that voice? I think that was talked about too. Where is this coming from? Is this from an experience? Is this from a person? I didn't like all of these answers, to be honest. I thought some of them were like, we can remove that in this next variation. We don't need all of them, but yeah. But how did y'all feel about this section of the book, of the chapter?
There was more quotes I wanted to share with the previous.
Oh, sorry.
So back to page 28. So she talks about nurturing to make an artist, and like how shadow artists didn't receive sufficient nurturing, right? So just like the stories me and Alyssa shared, Jesse, Kyle in the comments, that again, it's about nurturing ourselves. And so again, it's not like when we excavate and uncover these things, it's not to poo-poo our childhood and our past experiences like, oh, they're so negative and like that was terrible. It's to inquire and be inquisitive of like, okay, how does that show up now for me? And then like, what are things I want to try now? So that's also, I guess, kind of a reframe we can have. And then a quote I really wanted to share is on page 29. And she talks about creativity is play. But for shadow artists, learning to allow themselves to play is hard work, which again goes into our theme for the Summer Solstice Festival this year. Healing nature of play. And so I was like, oh, this is perfect. That we're one. She's just saying it, right? So even when she wrote this back in the 90s, it was like play was important. It's like, yes, still nowadays in 2025, play is so important. And that's what we're trying to get back to, is allowing ourselves, giving ourselves permission to play. And now in the last year, I started pole dancing, and I feel like that is my play practice that I enjoy. I'm a beginner at, and I'm happy being a beginner. Like if you follow me on my social media, you'll see me talk about that a lot. Like I'm not in a rush to do all these tricks, learn all these stuff. Like I enjoy this stuff. I get to learn. I'm slowly building more strength, but like I enjoy being a beginner. Like I like that I only know how to do a few things, and like I make a mistake and don't know how to do this, or like don't have that. Like I am trying to savor this time, because I know other styles of dance where I'm more advanced I've been doing for a long time. More pressure, because you're like, you know the technique, you know these tricks, you know the rhythm, the syncopation you're supposed to do. And so to do something as a beginner, I'm like, sometimes I don't know. I'm just doing this thing. It feels good to me. And to just kind of relish in that is what I'm learning in this part of my journey with my pole practice. And I feel like it taps into that play of like, again, when you're a beginner, it's like when you try something for the first time, whether it's a food or you go to a new place, and like when you travel, right, and you get that like kind of giddy feeling, or like the air just feels a little different when you're trying something new. And I think she's really trying to encourage all of us to like find those things for ourselves.
Oh, yes, Jesse. I like the quote about recovery being an awkward, embarrassing process, and that's okay. Yes, because it's about that discovery, right? Like trying things on. I look at it like that too. Just like for me, what I take from what you're saying too is like trying things on, and it's like it's not always going to be perfect, but it's again the key word for me in getting that. It's like it's a process, and that's okay. We're in process.
Exactly. And a quote that I love that I think about since we've read the book last year till now is on page 27. So very often audacity, not talent, one person an artist and another a shadow artist, right? So like it's that energy when some people are like, how does she do that? Like, like, oh, how does she have
audacity?
The nerve? How does she have the nerve? Audacity. They're like, oh, she's, some artists,
audacious.
Some like musical artists, musicians, some people will be like, oh, they're not even that talented. Like, why do they have a tour? They had the audacity to go record a song, and then people started listening to it. They got popular, and now they're on tour. So it's like, again, things like that is just like, you have the audacity, you like have the confidence, you have, the inner motivation to do the thing, finish it, and put it out there. And I think a lot, again, of this book is allowing ourselves to unlearn and take off these things that weigh us down, so we can be more audacious, so we can be confident and really go for the things that we want. Again, even if no one is going to see it, the fact that you finished writing a book, right? The fact that you went and go learn this new art practice, like you just are going to walk different. Like you're just going to have this different energy about you compared to someone who's a shadow artist poo-pooing everyone around them.
Yeah. I mean, I think that also goes into for y'all, like how Soul Tree was created out of audacity. We had the audacity to start and stumble forward, sometimes skip, sometimes run, sometimes chasse, pas de bourrée, bum roll. We've just been falling forward graciously into the arms of our community. So when people ask us, like, how did y'all start? This vision was not clear, but it was a sense of playfulness between our ideas, a sense of playfulness with our community. So I think sometimes when I get bogged down, I have to think about like, wait a minute, we do this other thing. It's like, it's so interesting how we as people compartmentalize ourselves. And especially, so yes, there's some of us who might be shadow artists who haven't come fully in our artist identity. And some of us have one part that's an artist, but then another part of ourselves. So I think there's shadows within all of us. And so for me, like when I think about shadow artists, I expand that, like, okay, what parts of myself is in the shadow that I want to bring to the light and have the audacity to be vulnerable, to be like, I really want to express this part of myself. And sometimes using the word artist can be very scary. So I invite people to think of like, okay, what parts of myself are shaded that I want to share with others? Think about that. And maybe that's through an art practice, maybe that's through something else. But I think that's how I'm able to continue to know that I have a lot of work that I can excavate, even though I am an artist by identity of people see me. There's still more artists in shades of artists that's yet to be uncovered. So I humble myself in this work.
Exactly. And I think it's also really helpful to think about also like what do you want to do for yourself, right? Like some of these art practice or creative practices, it's like, oh, you're just curious about, right? So like it might be challenging to think of like, oh, something I want to share with another person, but like, oh, what do you really find that you enjoy doing, and to just like tap into that. And again, our artist dates can kind of be places where we can tap into that. Last quote from this section I want to share, then we can move on as we close out for the week. But much fear of our own creativity is the fear of the unknown, right? So I think, again, when we talk about shadow artists, when we talk about starting this journey of recovery, finding a place of safety, it's really that we're scared. And she talks about that in this section.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it's not like a fear. It's like, okay, right? Like as humans, we want to be safe. We want to protect ourselves. And especially if we get to this point where we're in adulthood, we know certain things will keep us safe, will keep us protected, will keep a house over our head, a shelter, will keep us fed, our bills paid. So we're like, why would I want to disrupt that if I don't know what's going to happen if I, start writing a book or start performing or start doing this new activity that might take more energy and time away from my routine that is safe. And she invites us to acknowledge that like, it's okay to be scared. You don't have to, have all the answers today. You don't have to do it all in one day. You're not going to finish writing the book in one day. So it's just taking those little steps and even acknowledging that like, oh, there's something creative or an art practice or however you want to word it for yourself that like I'm interested in. So even what they say, right? The first step is acknowledgement. So even just acknowledging is a part of the journey. You don't have to even start it yet. You can start thinking about, oh, what are classes in my area? Just Googling, classes for ceramics near me. And maybe that will help you feel more connected to, your interests and your desires. And again, it's like taking those small steps that, again, if you do it consistently with intention, it will lead to you feeling more creative, feeling like an artist, living a more artful life. So again, I'm just reminding all of us that like, it doesn't have to be like, okay, tomorrow, now I'm doing a whole big production. It's like, that's not what this book is about. There's probably other books that will help you do that, but definitely not the get rich quick, be an artist quick book. It's really about those little tiny things that will help us sustain these things in the long run.
Before we close out, I do want to talk a little bit about like the creative affirmations, because I think that's a great offering. And she also encouraged us to write our own for ourselves. And so as we, finish out week 1 and we're, gearing up for week 2. My question for the group is what kind of creative affirmations are we going to repeat to ourselves to allow this recovery process to start and initiate?
Yes, something I write for myself. So this year is about expansion for me. And then my crystal of the year, I'm not wearing it today, but my crystal last year was green calcite for money manifesting. And then my color is orange for creativity, which is connected to the sacral chakra. And so this year I'm definitely sharing out loud that I want to be more creative. I want to step in and walk more creatively in my passions and paths. And so one thing I do share with myself a lot, like an affirmation, is like, I am creative. Just that. Is that like, again, I can kind of rewire. It's like, oh yeah, I am creative, right? Like the way I dress myself, the way I, prepare a meal, or the way you problem solve a thing, right? All these things can be creative. And then another one that I share with myself, which is kind of tied to transaction, but it's like, I get paid to be myself and I get paid to be my creative self. And that's something for my own personal journey is important, because sometimes I do see myself as separate. Like I have public health, wellness stuff that I get paid for. And then my things that I consider creative, I don't see that as getting paid, even though Soultree, we do have money exchange for things that we do. To me, the way I've been conditioned by society, I don't feel like I'm paid for that. My like 9-to-5 job, right? But so in my journey, I'm thinking of like, oh, I'm paid to be my creative self, and that's manifested in different ways of like me being able to have more opportunities through Soultree. That does come with some sort of monetary exchange, which again, I'm not saying that this is a goal for this book club, but I feel like that mentality in the last year of reading the book of showing up more creatively led to these experiences. So that's what I to share of like where I'm at personally, is that like I think reading the book has helped me see myself as a creative, which then when people come to me and Soultree for opportunities, I'm like, oh yeah, I see myself as that, versus before I might have been like, oh, maybe someone else is a better fit or whatever. It's like I'm more so like, oh yeah, I can do it. I'll figure it out. Like, what you want, we got it.
Yes. Yeah, for me, something that I'm chewing on is my creative play is just as important, if not more vital, than my creative work. Like my creative play will always positively impact my creative work. I really want to embody that, because I keep prioritizing my creative work, and because out of fear that if I don't prioritize creative work, the work will not be there. Like I'm not worthy of the work if I am not operating in an anxious state, constantly looking for the next. I really want to invite more space between the work to play, so that I can intentionally fall into the next project. I really want to operate out of a place of abundance. It's hard to say that as I'm in grad school, because I want to, but I'm like, no. I'm really trying to like push the matote madness of the expectation that, that it's supposed to be linked. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be linked, but also like, I really want to find like, so that's my affirmation, that my creative play is way more important. Because it says more about me than my work. My play says more about me than my work.
I love that. And I think that's why I really resonate with my pole practice right now, like me being a beginner in pole, because it's not related to Soultree. It's not related to my 9-to-5 job. I just enjoy being around the pole and being sensual. And like, I think that's why I just find so much joy. And like, I'm so okay with being a beginner, because it's not at all linked to my stability of my life right now. Is really just a play practice. And that's what I enjoy. Because yeah, again, with Soultree, that since we do so many other wellness practices, the other stuff I do is creative and I get to create in ways, but sometimes it can still feel like is that really play? Because it's kind of attached to something else. So I do resonate with like having something for yourself can be part of this journey of recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Jessie sharing that is similar to mine. I am an artist. Yes, we love
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Kyle sharing. I can't remember if this was in the book, but I started thinking about the shadows being cast by what your dreams are hitting. However big, tall your fear is, I think there is about breaking those fears down bit by bit. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, okay. That's poetic. That's some poetic stuff, right? I had to reread it a few times to let it sink in. That's interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I also feel like sometimes the shadow and that fear can come from your dreams being so big that sometimes you don't know where to start. I feel like that's kind of where some of my fear comes from, of like sometimes like I have this big idea for this creative exhibit that I want, this art installation, and I have bits and ideas, and there's even some things I already started doing because it's also going to be a compilation of like past writings I've done, different things, collages, but like to put them all together for my big vision and my dream seems daunting to me. And so it's hard for me to then start the other projects I need to make it cohesive because it just seems so big, which casts a shadow on my art project, which again, I think the mentality is to just do the bit by bit and not think of so much the big thing, which again is like it's hard because again when you're fighting those shadow demons in your head, it's hard to get out of it because it's like so internal.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yes. So thank you all for sharing for week 1. This was recovering a sense of safety. Feel free to add any last minute thoughts in the chat, or if you're watching the replay and we didn't touch on things that you wanted to share, definitely comment them below. I did want to share with you all, since we're still on live, that we have an exciting announcement for next week. So for week 2, we're having Katie here. So again, if you're just joining the live, we are doing an open call. So for any folks who want to hop on live and be live with us chatting, and we're inviting folks. So just DM us at Sultry Sisters or email us connect@sultrysisters.com so we can start coordinating with you all. But Katie Ruiz of the Pom Pom Project will be here next week as we talk about recovering a sense of identity. And we have other folks on the roster for our book club this spring. So definitely let us know sooner rather than later so we can slot you in. We want to make sure we get all the folks who are interested scheduled so y'all know what to expect. But yeah, it'll flow just like this. We're just going to have an extra guest. So it's going to be super fun. And we love hearing from all of you.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, so if you enjoyed this, definitely donate and support us at Sultry Sisters. We have Venmo, PayPal. If there's other ways you'd love to support us, we also have Zelle. So just hit us up. We love all of y'all's support. And if monetary support is not accessible to you now, definitely follow us on all platforms. At Sultry Sisters. You can subscribe to our email newsletter on our website.
Subscribe to this channel.
YouTube, because then you get an alert when we go live. We also have past videos on our YouTube channel. So if you want an artist date to be like a movement practice, we have free videos. On a meditation as your artist date, we have that. We got y'all covered. Okay. Like,
got y'all.
So yes. We look forward to seeing you all next week. Same time, same place. And again, if you're interested in any of our events coming up, definitely support. And we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.